This allows us to pass the webinar recording on to others that haven't been able to join. So the slides and the discussion will be recorded. I'd like to start the session by really giving an overview as to what the purpose of this briefing is. First and foremost, we wanted to introduce you to Smart Cities Week, the concept. It's a series of conferences that we hold in various parts of the world. For Australia Smart Cities Week, I'd like to share some of our current thinking, and I will highlight the fact that this is very early thinking. It's conceptual, and as you'll see when I go through the slides, I've very clearly indicated that this content, the ideas, are subject to change. Through your questions, we're keen to get feedback that allows us to sort of work further on the content and the concept. So getting feedback is another objective. And then finally, really, the purpose is also to start incubating some opportunities. We've got a very ambitious agenda for Smart Cities Week Australia. It's going to be an agenda that we want to share with other aligned organisations, industry bodies, but also our partners and other stakeholders. So this is really just to start getting and giving you a sense of the types of things that we'd like to address, the issues we'd like to advance, and indeed the experiences that we would like to create. I want to start by answering the question that we're getting quite frequently, which is, why are we doing Smart Cities Week in Australia, particularly when there's a whole range of existing events that are underway or are planned for the year. And really, from our experience here in Australia over the last 18 months, attending many Smart Cities conferences and events, we think there's three things that are missing that we'd like Smart Cities Week to really pick up on. Firstly is the whole conference experience itself. We're finding that many conferences are following the same formula, which predominantly involves presenters and panels. You then go into breakout sessions and there's more presenters and panels. So we think that industry and government could really have a different experience in a Smart Cities conference. We'd also like to spend more time trying to incubate action, creating opportunities for investment, really helping to bring the demand and the supply side together, and those tools for action, those tools for investment. And finally, the other third key issue that we think is missing in the marketplace at the moment is legacy. A lot of conferences that are run around smart cities at the moment are event-only activities. There's really no legacy or ongoing post-event action, and so we really want to make sure that the post-event experience is alive and well, and we influence policy and practice, and ultimately, therefore, investment. I'd just like to do a quick sound check. If someone could, or a few people could write in the chat bar if you're hearing me clearly. If you could just say "hearing you loud and clear," that would be great. I just want to make sure that. Thanks, Hassan. Just want to make sure that things are good. Thanks, James and others. Okay, that's great. Thank you, everyone. Smart Cities Week. We've been running Smart Cities Week for more than 3 years now, predominantly in the United States. Our key international conference is Smart Cities Week DC, which we run every October in Washington, DC, and we've been doing that since 2015. Last year, 2017, we started running our first West Coast US conference, which is Smart Cities Week Silicon Valley in Santa Clara. And this year we run our conference in India as well. That's called Smart Urban Nation in March in Hyderabad. And then, of course, the subject of this webinar, Smart Cities Week Australia, which will be in Sydney in later October in 2018. So Smart Cities Week is an event that we run in multiple geographies, and in 2019 we potentially will be expanding that again into Europe. So I wanted to just highlight the fact that Smart Cities Week Australia is part of a family of Smart City Week events, and they all have their own different sort of personality and pitch, and indeed the way they're designed differs between certain messages that we're wanting to advance. For Australia, we've created, I suppose, a persona or bio for Smart Cities Week, and it's very much one that is around wanting to, I suppose, inspire action and networking across an emerging region. We want to provide tools to help with actioning and creating investment ideas. We want to facilitate dialogue and really accelerate outcomes. And I use that word region in a literal sense because Smart Cities Week Australia, we're very much aspiring for it to be a regional event. We're very conscious that Australia and New Zealand, which is a core part of our regional business down here, it sits within an emerging region, a big region, lots of cities, lots of growth, and lots of opportunities. This is an ambitious agenda to try and build something that resembles a regional event, but we think that there's enough interest and there's enough opportunity, particularly given the timing of Smart Cities Week, late 2018, that we might be able to really achieve this goal. And you can see there just some of the cities that we're looking to engage with to sort of identify potential opportunities for having them not only attend but also be part of the activities and the presentations and the roundtables. So this is first and foremost for us a regional event to listen and learn and network from our peers within the region. Our audience, government, industry and the community, very much with government and industry, the supply and demand side, but also that sort of third sector, that third part of the community, the startups and small to medium enterprises, emerging innovators, the community leaders, and academia and other stakeholders. So it's a very broad audience, but we think the fundamental stakeholders that allow us to sort of activate a marketplace. So here's a first glance at an emerging program structure for Smart Cities Week Australia. You'll note the asterisks on the end of the title there. It's very much subject to change, and this is really to just give you a helicopter view. I've identified a range of different colorings here. Don't need to really focus on those except to say that there will be core sessions and core conference components that delegates have access to, but we'll also be offering optional ones, and indeed there's likely to be some invitation only sessions as well. So the core conference itself is the 3 days. We're looking at a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you can see there that that's structured up as a pre-conference day, day one, and also day two. What I'm going to do shortly is dig a little bit deeper into these components of Smart Cities Week, but just really to highlight the fact that the core conference is over 2 to 3 days. But what we look to do is we also will be inviting other partners and stakeholders to be part of the week. So we try and reflect the idea of Smart Cities Week being a week-long celebration of smart cities success and inspiration. And we'll sort of try and achieve that as much as possible, but Smart Cities Week is very much anchored around our 3-day conference. You'll also see there that there's events in the evening, not only, for example, our welcome party and the Smart Cities Awards, but we're looking to make sure that those that aren't from Sydney, that are coming from both other regions in Australia and New Zealand, but also internationally, they get the opportunity to experience Sydney as well. So, for example, on the evening of day one after the awards reception, we want to make sure that we have hosted dinners around the city so that delegates can sort of network in a more smaller environment, but also sort of see parts of the host city being Sydney. So let me sort of take you now into the core part of the webinar, which is giving you a taste and a bit of an insight into the sessions that we're looking to run. And what I will say is that for Smart Cities Week Australia, rather than starting with any technical themes or content, what we wanted to focus on was experience, because as I said in the beginning of the webinar, we think that there's a better experience out there for conference delegates wanting to learn more about smart cities. So really, Smart Cities Week Australia, what we've done is we've focused our work around providing a range of experiences. And so far, we've identified 5 primary experiences that we're looking to advance. Those experiences are the boardroom, the lab, the institute, the stage, and the agora. I'll give you a brief insight into each of those. So if we start with the boardroom is really focused around leadership and policy and strategy at a national and regional level, really looking to be a deliberative experience. It's a smaller environment, mayors and CEOs, agency directors and ministers. It's literally modelled on the boardroom experience. Limited seats. We're looking at having a number of parallel boardrooms set up at the event venue, around 30 seats per boardroom. It's very much an intimate environment. As I said, focusing on dialogue and deliberation. We want to deep dive into some of those issues around policy and leadership. Each boardroom session will have a designated chairperson. There'll also be a guest, and there'll be takeaway notes. There'll be the top 3 issues discussed and top 3 action items identified. So really trying to model that conference session on a boardroom experience. We've got a lot of work to do around what the content will be, but we've got a number of ideas. And with each of these 5 experiences, I just want to share some very brief thinking about the topics that we might look to cover. We'll be inviting friends, stakeholders, other organisations to help us curate these sessions. But for the boardroom, really diving into some core issues for the region, such as ag tech futures. We're really looking to advance wellbeing as a smart cities tool. Connectivity, fundamentally, is the smart cities backbone, really looking at broadband and IoT and similar infrastructure. We'd also like to, I suppose, look a little bit forward, 5 years from now, growth in the region, the internet economy, where are we positioned locally and globally. We're very much this year in 2018 wanting to talk more about the idea of the smart state, how do state and territory and provincial levels of government engage more deeply into the work that cities and municipalities are advancing around smart cities, and of course how state and territories align with what national government and central government actions and programs are doing. So the smart state potentially is a boardroom session that we think would be of great interest. We also want to continue to advance our strong commitment to building greater social inclusion and social equity in the smart cities work that we do. Also very interested to advance our Digital Australia agenda, looking at the construction industry and construction innovation and supply chain. And indeed, from a regional perspective, smart cities, trade and investment. So we believe that that's just a selection of some of the boardroom sessions that we might look to advance. And just on the boardroom sessions, these will be parallel sessions. Smart Cities Week will have plenaries on both days, but as sessions break out, it's these 5 experiences that delegates will choose to sort of participate in. The boardroom sessions, we're looking to have boardrooms, as I said, set up at the actual event venue, but we're also strategically identifying off-site boardrooms in nearby offices where our partners are located, within a short walk, a block or 2 away. So that gives us capacity to have more physical boardrooms set up should there be demand for it. I'd like to briefly introduce you to the lab. The lab is an experience for us which is really around testing, it's around exploring. It's fundamentally modelled on the idea of the old high school laboratory with an instructor up the front, maybe a guest speaker, but around your tables with your colleagues and your peers, working in small group activities, listening and learning and testing. And we believe that that's a real ideal networking environment as well when you're in smaller groups with your peers working through particular activities, but also being guided by some expert instructors. So that's sort of the experience that we're trying to create with the lab. And just to give you some insights into what our current thinking is, a whole range of exciting topics that we think would suit that type of an experience in a laboratory environment, city service delivery, mobile, augmented reality, data and dashboards, and also connected and autonomous vehicles. You know, we believe these are the types of issues that warrant not only some sort of plenary discussion by the instructor at the front of the lab, but then also at your sort of lab desk, diving a little bit deeper and working with your peers to sort of unpack some of those core issues. We also like the idea of sort of unpacking and digging into digital transformation strategies. We also want to advance a smart infrastructure agenda, looking more deeply into the anatomy of smart building and smart buildings, the principles and the practices, and also smart cities as a vehicle for economic development. What are those insights from those smart cities leaders within local and state government that are advancing their smart cities investments to really help accelerate economic development opportunities? So there's some of the lab sessions that we've been looking at that we may potentially advance. And so I sort of change tack a little bit now, and I sort of go to the Institute as sort of a more educational experience, training, both advanced master classes, but also, I suppose, the 101 and the essentials type of learning environment sessions that we want to sort of offer. The experience is very much like a classroom style environment. It's a learning environment, a number of master classes delivered by industry leaders. And again, this is one of 5 parallel sessions or parallel experiences that you have the choice to participate in. We want to make sure that the Institute is a place where you can go and hear and listen from an industry expert, but then also turn to sort of the desk and start structuring or establishing or scoping your own blueprint or plan or strategy. We want to make sure that we're helping give you, but also build the tools for action and investment. Some of the sessions within the Institute, as I said, a combination of more detailed master classes, but also the essentials or 101 style sessions. Internet of Things is a key one for us. Smart urban development is another emerging issue that we want to tackle. Social media analytics and digital engagement and civic innovation are others that we'd like to dig deeper into. Real emerging issues that we think are important to embrace. Planning your hackathon. What are the essentials in planning a hackathon for your organisation, for your staff? Unleashing the intra and entrepreneurs within your organisation. Smart cities standards is a key issue that is rapidly evolving. There's a lot of standards that are out there, and we want to help people understand what's available, what's accessible, but also which standards are most meaningful for the work that they're doing, their projects, their organisation. And of course, there's the fundamentals around developing your smart cities strategy, you know, really looking to map out the journey, roadmap of investments, funding models, looking at making sure that those investments are tied to very clear targets and priorities that either an organisation or a project has established. So that's the Institute. That's the third of the 5 experiences that we want to create. And I turn now to the stage, and the stage really resembles, I suppose, somewhat your typical conference space. It looks like, a stage, presenter, lectern, panel. This is where we really showcase best practice, emerging innovation. But we're trying to create more of a fishbowl environment with the stage experience that we establish. We're looking at a three-sided stage. We want to provide an immersive audience that is around that stage. And what we'd like to do is we'd actually like to put a bit of a twist on the panel conversation idea, which is to make sure the audience is invited up onto the stage. So there'll be a rotating panel with sessions where the audience come up on stage, occupy a seat, be part of one element of the panel discussion, and then sort of move on and we rotate the panelists. So we want to make sure that it's a lively and vibrant panel discussion, not necessarily the same people all the time. And we think that we can do that well in that type of immersive environment. So the stage is really probably what resembles, as I said, a typical sort of event space. And that'll be our largest event space. That'll also be where the plenaries are held, that can hold, up to sort of 280, 350 people. And on the stage, but also throughout Smart Cities Week, we have been working through some core themes that we would like to advance. And at the moment, we're working with these as a draft, these 4 themes around connected, aware, accelerate, and compassion. We believe that physical and digital connectivity is a key enabler to the smart city, and indeed digging deep into those issues around smart infrastructure. That's both horizontal and vertical infrastructure, the Internet of Things, of course, and we know that with the emerging rollout of 5G and activation of a 5G network, that in a lot of instances the smart cities world really changes, and it gives us amazing opportunities. Under the theme of aware, this idea of building a data culture, developing actionable intelligence, really doing something with data, moving into those areas of optimizing in real time, advancing predictive analytics. So this theme around aware platforms and algorithms and dashboards is the second of the 4 that we're looking to advance. And what I will say is that these slides are quite text heavy at the moment. They're not ideal for presenting, but we'll look to be able to provide an adapted version of this presentation should people be interested in. The third theme that we're looking at is around this idea of accelerate, getting to better outcomes quicker, and using technology and data as the platform for that. So hacking and digitizing and innovating some of the ideas that sort of sit within that theme of accelerate. And fourthly, and one that we're very much sort of at the heart of what we do at the Smart Cities Council, is really looking at the theme of compassion and how smart cities can be a force for social good. There's very particular and emerging challenges around engaging our youth, building cities for the elderly, and of course what we do with our most vulnerable. How do we engage them? How do we use tech and data as a force for social good? So compassion will be a theme that will be strongly represented throughout multiple sessions and multiple activities at Smart Cities Week, and we very much believe that is a vessel by which we can ground and provide context to the Smart Cities movement as well. So those were our 4 themes that we're looking to sort of weave throughout the different experiences. And fifthly, in terms of the 5th experience throughout the parallel sessions, we sort of have the Agora, which is this public place that we're trying to create. It's lively, it's fast-paced, it's pop-up like. We want that to be the home of our sort of startup conversations. And nothing's more than 7 minutes in duration in terms of presentations or pitches or conversations. So it's very fast-paced, it's very succinct. And you can come anytime, there'll always be something on Agora. It'll be a place not only where you can sort of listen and hear and network, but also sort of mingle and have conversations to the side. You'll be able to sit in the agora, stand on the outside in the periphery. It's a very permeable space, and this space will be set up in our sort of open breakout area where lunch and morning tea and those other type of sessions will be. I also want to highlight that whilst those are our 5 key experiences, there's very much 2 other things that we're looking to advance at Smart Cities Week. And one is really celebrating success. And the second one is really embracing the idea of failure. And so there's 2 other key activities that we'll be undertaking at Smart Cities Week Australia this year. One is the inaugural Australian Smart Cities Awards, which is an awards scheme. Some of you may have already heard about that. We launched, we announced last year that we were going to advance these awards. And of course, we'll hold that ceremony on the evening of day 1 of Smart Cities Week. The other one is failure, and we're establishing the feedback box. The awards, as I've mentioned, is really around celebration and rewarding leadership and networking. But the feedback box is this idea that we can learn from failing. And we rarely see at Smart Cities conferences discussions and conversations and indeed keynotes on failure and lessons learned. So we're really wanting to make sure that we provide a space for delegates. It's a safe space where they can go and they can share what they've learned, share their failures, and indeed we can then potentially look at seeing how we can learn from each other. And so this idea of a space that you walk into, modelled a bit like on a confession box or a little vox pops type space, screens out the front which are sort of anonymously putting up the feedback that's put into that. We still need to work on that, but we think that that's going to be a really exciting part of Smart Cities Week, because we're going to be able to share something that we've rarely shared before, which is what we did that didn't work, and of course how we can learn from each other. Above all, as I mentioned, compassion is a very strong theme that we're looking to advance. We're going to be introducing at Smart Cities Week Australia the Karma Kiosk. One of our partners, Place Design Group, has established a tap and go platform that allows us to help fund projects that use tech and data to reduce the suffering in our vulnerable communities. And so that's going to be a feature within the open space beside the Agora that allows us to give back. And there'll be much more information coming later this year around the Karma Kiosk. So I've taken you through sort of the core 5 experiences which will be available on day 1 and day 2 of Smart Cities Week. What I want to briefly do, and finally, is share with you our ideas for the pre-conference day. We're looking at running a legacy project, a PropTech summit in collaboration with other industry partners, a couple of featured masterclasses, our Smart Cities Council's readiness workshop, but also happiness as a city metric, running a Cities Lab research forum. On the opening night, we'll have a Smart Cities Picha Kucha, and also we're looking to facilitate a Smart Asia Pacific Roundtable. Just briefly on each of those pre-conference events, the legacy project, this is really important. I mentioned earlier, so many events on the spot, they come and go. What we really want to do is, whilst we've gathered hundreds of leaders within the industry, we want to make sure that we're giving back to the host city, the host region. Our Smart Cities Council Social Impact Task Force will be hosting a legacy project. That will be on the pre-conference day. That allows you to take part with your peers in working through a particular smart city project for a community. It'll be in partnership with a local non-profit, the relevant local authority, and also other key stakeholders. And really the goal there is to sort of leave a positive legacy from those that have come to discuss and take part in Smart Cities Week. So the Legacy project is an exciting one that we're looking forward to. The 2018 PropTech Summit, we want to have a half-day session that is really celebrating the digital transformation of the property sector. We're working and negotiating with some other industry bodies at the moment to co-host that, and we're looking as that being a half-day event on the pre-conference day. So for those interested in construction and property and urban development, that'll be of great interest. I mentioned featured masterclasses. Now, these are masterclasses on pre-conference day, which are different to those that are being run at the Institute during day 1 and day 2. There's 2 that we've identified, Smart Cities Readiness, but then also Happiness as a city metric. These are established masterclasses Smart Cities Council has that we facilitate at other Smart Cities Week conferences around the world, that we'll also be bringing to Australia as well. Cities Lab, which is a Smart Cities research forum in collaboration with industry and academia, looking at cross-sector opportunities focused around smart cities investment, research, practice partnerships, and also the most important one, which is translating research into action. So we're looking forward to building up a range of academic partners to help us bring that conversation together, and that'll be a half-day event on pre-conference day on the Wednesday. I mentioned the opening night, and the opening event will be a Smart Cities Picha Kucha. The Agora will be hosting Picha Kucha sessions throughout day 1 and day 2, but this is the actual opening party, I suppose. We want to start it with inspiration and networking, and we're going to be asking Smart Cities leaders within the industry and government to get up on stage for their 7-minute presentation to sort of really excite us. So looking forward to that as being the opening night, and indeed the opening activity before day 1 and 2 commences. So almost done here with the PowerPoint presentation, but of those pre-conference day sessions, this is a really exciting one that we're scoping at the moment, which is a Smart Asia Pacific Roundtable. We very much welcome the opportunity to sit down and engage in dialogue with our Asia Pacific friends and delegates that will be joining us. And we really want to get into strategy and policy and investment across the region, making sure that we build those relationships, and indeed for those locally in Australia and New Zealand, that's an opportunity to showcase Smart Cities excellence that we have here in the region, but also more broadly throughout the region, see what others are doing and how others are advancing and building their marketplaces for embracing technology and data for good. So that roundtable is one that we'll work with other partners on as we move forward. And so what I do in sort of wrapping up here, I mean, it's a very, as you've seen, it's a very ambitious and big agenda. There's a lot going on, but we've learned at the Smart Cities Council that you can get a lot done when you partner with friends, with aligned stakeholders and supporting industry groups. We'll be advancing a whole range of different partnerships with different entities. What I will say is that we have a global conference partner, MCI. They're the largest professional conference organizer in the world. They've been running Smart Cities Week in the US for us for the past year, and are working on us on multiple opportunities around the world. And so they will be, again, working with us to help successfully deliver Smart Cities Week Australia later this year. So I now turn briefly, and this is a bit of a prompting slide to sort of help generate some interest and questions from you on this webinar. At the moment, immediately, we're seeing 4 key opportunities for those that are interested in sort of being part of this. We will be launching a sponsorship platform online in the coming months, which will break down the entire program and allow industry partners and government to indeed look into how they might want to directly get involved in supporting Smart Cities Week. Stepping back at a high level, we'll be establishing a program committee. They'll help sort of shape the content and some of the sessions. But what I will say, the third item there is that we will have more detailed session curators, and they will be both partners of the Smart Cities Council, our members, but also, as I said, aligned and affiliated organisations, other industry groups that will help us curate and architect particular dialogues or discussions. The fourth one there, we're wanting to launch a Smart Cities Week Ambassador program. There'll be more information coming with that and what the role and responsibilities are, and therefore what the opportunities are for those that put their hand up. And fifthly, media partners. We're very interested in working with a range of media partners, not only to help promote the event, but also to help build an industry dialogue through the media, making sure that the outcomes of Smart Cities Week are shared, that the stories are told, and that indeed the dialogue continues well after the event itself. SmartCitiesWeek.com will be the platform and the place in which you go and which we will share as the program and other attributes of Smart Cities Week Australia build out. You can go there now to register to be on the email notification list. So SmartCitiesWeek.com is the place to go to register for that information on Australia, but also, as you can see there, for our other Smart Cities Week events around the world. So what I'd like to do with that, I'd like to turn it over. I'd like to turn it over to those that are on the line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to experiment for a few moments to see if I can take everyone off mute for those that might want to ask a question. What I will ask is those that are in noisy places that may have background noise that are intrusive, if you could keep yourself on mute. But what I'd like to do now, actually what I'll do is I'm just going to quickly address questions that are in the chat box, and please use the chat box for logging questions. I've got Charles ask a question here around why just October in Australia, no dates yet. Smart Cities Week is in DC in the first week of October. That's correct. We are looking at October for Smart Cities Week Australia because we've had to align our event among others to make sure that we get maximum participation. Dates late October. The actual dates will be forthcoming very shortly. We're just doing some final negotiations with venues, so stay tuned for that. Hassan has mentioned the idea of beginning the Smart Cities journey. I hope that the description of the different sessions, both the master classes, but also the general theme and discussion, we very much want to make sure that we touch on the idea of the smart journey being one that requires a range of different capabilities and capacity to be built. So we'll definitely be making sure that the content at Smart Cities Week covers the essentials, but also covers discrete and deep dialogue around key vertical areas as well. Ashwini has asked the question around getting a copy of the presentation. I've mentioned that you'll be able to access a more abbreviated version of this PowerPoint presentation, but really the idea behind this industry briefing was to introduce you to it so that we could then go offline and have more deeper conversations and share a more deeper program with you. So I'll do a follow-up email after this webinar to sort of more clearly highlight how we can have deeper conversations. Alicia has asked a really good question around how will the legacy project be selected. My answer to that, Alicia, is that I'll be putting that into the hands of our our social impact task force. They've got a good sort of 8 to 10 months to work on that. And what I would say is that if anyone is really interested in helping shape that or be part of it, to definitely highlight that in your correspondence with me, so that I can put you in touch with the social impact task force. Shane has asked a question about is there a venue decided? Shane, we're very close. It's imminent, and we'll make sure that if you're signed up to that Smart Cities Week alert, that you'll find out as soon as that information comes to hand. So that's the current set of questions through the chat function on the webinar panel there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take us off mute and see if anyone wanted to raise a question or issue verbally. If you could state your name and the location you're from or city you're from, let's see if we can sort of make that work. So everyone's off mute now. Someone's on hold. So for those that have got background noise, I would ask that you mute. Thank you. Okay, someone's on hold, and I'm not able to track down. Who that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn us back onto mute, and I'll ask that questions come through the chat bar for those that are interested in asking a question. So your chat bar is at the bottom of the webinar panel. Feel free to log a comment, ask a question. Hassan has put up a question around dealing with a lot of local government departments. Local government, cities, municipalities will be a key audience for us in particular. The question continues. A number of questions coming through now. Just back to Hassan's question. Regional and rural have not even planned a Smart Cities journey. How do we intro them to the journey? Hassan, the Smart Cities Readiness Masterclass that we'll be running on the pre-conference day, for those that are in attendance at Smart Cities Week, that will be the session. That'll be the session that would be fundamental for someone that is just in the early stages of trying to understand what Smart Cities is. A Smart Cities Readiness Workshop is really the fundamentals, it's the 101. And it indeed helps organisations just get up on their feet. They have an overall understanding about what the smart city idea is, how it could benefit their organisation, and it gives them a couple of tools to help start mapping out some of that journey. So the Smart Cities Readiness Workshop and Masterclass will cater for that. Shane has asked, he's noticed a Singapore event coming up. Is that related? No, it's not related. A lot of events throughout the year, not only in Australia and New Zealand, but around the region. I'll be in Singapore in a few weeks for the IEEE Internet of Things event. That may be the one, Shane, that you're referring to. But Smart Cities Week is a standalone event that the Smart City Council is running, as I said, later in October this year. Char has mentioned his relationship with LG Electronics, serving as their Global Smart Cities Advisor to the group. Yes, we'd love to sort of have your clients, your colleagues, your peers aware of Smart Cities Week Australia. It may be an ideal opportunity for them to not only hear the latest from the region, but also engage and network with their peers. So that would be hugely valuable, Char. Thank you for that. Ashwini has asked a really good question about how the program committee is going to be decided. We've been running program committees for a number of years with Smart Cities Week, so we have a process by which we both tap people on the shoulder who we think could provide some really valuable insights, but equally we want to make sure that there's some opportunity from others to express an interest in being part of the program committee. So we'll go through that process in the coming months, and I recommend that you keep an eye out for that. Adam has asked a question about will there be an opportunity for organisations to present during the conference? There certainly will be. There'll be many different ways, as you could see from the 5 experiences that we want to create. There'll definitely be presentations and presenting, but there's also the lab and the institute where organisations will really be able to deeply share their expertise and help build the capacity of their peers. So there'll be a whole range of ways in which organisations and individuals will be able to actively be involved in the program. And as I mentioned also a number of times, we'll be seeking session curators as well, those that really want to help shape a conversation. They may not be part of the conversation, they may not be speaking or be on a panel, but they really want to architect a particular type of dialogue that they feel is really important. So we also need those type of friends to come on board to help us curate those sessions. Chara's asked a question of whether we plan on attracting real estate developers and investors. The answer to that is absolutely. We believe that the built environment, the property sector, the construction sector is one that needs to be more deeply engaged in the smart cities movement. We view the smart cities movement as being a city building agenda, a city building agenda. So investors and developers from property, from urban development are very much part of our audience that we want to attract. And there's going to be a whole range of issues around smart urban development, smart buildings that, of course, we're going to have to unpack. And as you rightly identify, cost and benefit, return on investment, a whole range of issues that we're going to need to identify. Let me have a look here. Alicia, will there be calls for participants as the program committee decides on topics? Or is it more likely that we'll rely on our own networks to piece together session content? I think a mix of both, Alicia, would be my response to that. We want to work with people to co-create the program. The session ideas that I've shared today, they're ideas at the moment. We think they're important issues to be advanced, but we're going to rely on our industry leaders, those that are operating day to day in the smart cities agenda, to really help us out there as well. Ashwini has asked around what are the levels of sponsorship. We're fundamentally redefining how conference sponsorship is done. We're creating an online platform that pulls apart every aspect of the conference, and sponsorship will be curated through a process of clearly identifying the type of experience you want to support and sponsor, and in particular what type of sessions you want to be part of. So there's no standard gold, silver, platinum, with a certain dollar attached to it. The sponsors that want to get associated with this opportunity, they essentially go to an online store, and they'll be part of sort of building up what sponsorship experience they want to support. So that will be coming, and we'll definitely share that. That's for sure. What else have I got here? Alicia's mentioned what type of people do we select as the ambassadors? What does the role entail? It's early days. We have a few ideas. We'll be drafting something, and then we'll be putting it out there to industry. These are people that very much are part of wanting to give to the movement, make sure that we build a vibrant marketplace. They rise above their individual interests in smart cities. And they're really looking to help sort of generate a more broader sort of leadership community that wants to help others. So more information will be forthcoming on that. WeGo, Char has mentioned comments about WeGo. Sorry, Char, I did go past that. In collaboration with WeGo, 150 cities around the world. If interested, can introduce. Yes, okay, that sounds amazing. I'll take you up on that offer for sure. Okay, folks. Got a few people dropping off now, so maybe we've sort of hit the wall. Scott's just sent through another one. Will smart city business continuity security be addressed? Cyber security, data security, business continuity. Absolutely. This is sort of our conference to influence and curate. Through those 5 different experiences, we want to make sure that we can deliver and facilitate some really solid dialogue. So what I would say, Scott, is certainly get engaged early on, be part of influencing, be part of curating sessions, sponsorship. There's a whole variety of ways in which you can get involved to make sure that we facilitate the best conversations and the right conversations that we need to. Alicia, thank you for the comment around consultation. That's great. As I mentioned at the outset, we're wanting to create a very different conference experience. In the United States at Smart Cities Week DC, we've been aligning with other industry bodies. For example, the American Planning Association. For the last few years, we've asked them to come in and curate a session around issues on smart urban planning, autonomous vehicles, shared mobility. So we very much want to make sure that those that know more than we do are part of curating our program and indeed also helping facilitate as well. So please get engaged. We're very open to ideas and partnerships, and indeed if you know others that might be interested, feel free to also share. Okay, well, we're almost at the top of the hour. We had an hour and a half allocated, but we didn't need to use that necessarily if we didn't have to. So, without any further questions coming through the chat panel, what I might do is I might close the session off. I appreciate your participation and taking an hour out of your busy day to be part of this. In the bottom right-hand corner of the slide that is up on the screen at the moment are my contact details. I invite you to make contact with me directly around any of those opportunities that are listed up on the screen there. And of course, as I mentioned earlier on, if you go to smartcitiesweek.com, you will have the opportunity to sign up when you click the Learn More box that is on that landing page. So with that, I'll be signing off. Thanks so much for taking part, and look forward to having you engaged over the coming months as we shape up Smart Cities Week. I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you for those that have dialed in.